making strides in filling that gap of the vacancies instead of going backwards when it comes to attrition. So we have a lot of things to look forward to. We're going to continue to add to our ranks and hire some outstanding men and women to keep our community safe, and I'm certain that we'll be talking about some great strides in that again next year's briefing. You're going to hear some great speakers come up and some people that are some officers that will come up and talk to you about some things that have been accomplished in 2023. I urge you just to listen to that, and I'll return to the podium afterwards, and at this time I'll turn it back over to Lieutenant Petrus.
Thank you, Chief. So we've said it many, many times, and you just heard Chief Jennings say it again, reducing violent crime was a top priority in 2023. A lot of work and collaboration went into us CMPD staying flat for violent crime in 2023. Coming next is Major Michael Ford of the Special Investigations Bureau. He'll provide some insight into our efforts to curb violent crime in 2023. Major.
Hello, my name is Major Michael Ford with the Special Investigations Bureau. As Chief Jennings said, one of our biggest successes this year has been keeping our violent crime flat compared to the decreases we saw the last 2 years, and despite the rapid growth of our city. On top of the violent crime staying flat, our homicides fell by 11% in 2023. Our clearance rate remained close to 80%, which helps to bring some peace to families affected by these senseless acts of violence. The national homicide clearance rate average is just above 50%, which shows how great our homicide unit really is, one of the best in the country. As we always say, every single homicide represents a member of our community whose life was ended far too soon. During these investigations, we get to learn a lot about who the victims were through their families. The sad reality is our youngest homicide victim in 2023 was just 12 years old. The oldest was 68. Homicides don't just affect family and friends, they cause ripples of devastation throughout our community. Our clearance rate is what it is because we don't forget our victims. Our detectives work tirelessly to investigate each one of these homicides. In addition, our crime scene search, lab personnel, real-time crime center, crime analysts, patrol units, and our violent criminal apprehension team all have a critical role in the investigation and help lead us to a suspect and ultimately a conviction. You've also likely seen in the news this past year the incredible work of our cold case unit using the relatively new field of forensic genetic genealogy. We're able to bring closure to families who have gone decades without answers about what really happened to their loved ones. This is something we're really excited about moving into 2024. In addition to the drop in homicides, we also saw an 8% reduction in robberies. Any reduction in violent crime in a city rapidly growing as Charlotte is no small feat and takes a holistic approach. We are strategic about placing our officers in the most critical areas of the city to increase visibility and proactively deter violent crimes. Our crime reduction units do a great job with patrols in high crime areas. Our officers are not just simply responding to calls for service, they're taking the initiative to prevent crime through community interactions. The goal is to break cycles of violence in our community, whether that's through an arrest, a gun seizure, or simply having conversations with members of the community and sharing the information. Unfortunately, in 2023, we saw a 3% increase in overall aggravated assaults, which includes a 7% increase in aggravated assaults with a firearm. We're finding out more and more that conflicts, particularly among young people, are not being settled with words or even fists, but rather with the pull of a trigger. That is alarming to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Our entire society needs to learn better conflict resolution, and especially among our youth. Our officers and detectives do a massive amount of work to get firearms off the streets, and we'll get into some of that great work here in a second. But all too often, weapons are finding their way into the wrong hands and being used to commit violent acts. The unfortunate reality is that those violent acts often involve our juvenile population. A split-second decision to pull a trigger can ruin multiple lives, the victims, the suspects, and in very tragic cases, the lives of innocent bystanders. As we enter 2024, we're urging our residents to practice better awareness, restraint, and self-control, and teach those principles to their children. Now back to the positives for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. This past year, we've taken 3,432 firearms off the streets of Charlotte. That's a 10% increase from last year. That's a great number that shows how hard our men and women work in patrol and investigations to make the city safer. You'll hear next more about some very successful operations in 2023 and the great work of our specialized units. Thank you.
Thank you, Major. The Crime Gun Suppression Team is one of the specialized units that we have here at CMPD, and that team is at the forefront of our efforts to impact violent crime. Sergeant Daniel Bignell of the Crime Gun Suppression Team is going to come now to share more of that success with that team for 2023.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Sergeant Dave Bignell. I'm the supervisor of the Crime Gun Suppression Team. The Crime Gun Suppression Team, or CGST, started about 3 years ago when we took the gang unit, we took the shooting into occupied property unit, and we took the targeted response and apprehension team, and we merged them together. This team combines a special skill set to investigate gun crimes that happen in a series. These aren't random isolated shootings, but a part of a pattern of behavior from people who often operate in groups. The CGST is a critical tool in reducing violent crime, especially shootings in Charlotte. We've had some great successes, and we've had some great seizures. In 2023, the Crime Gun Suppression Team locked up 212, we made 212 arrests, seized 244 firearms, 49 of those guns were reported stolen. We even seized $130,000 in cash linked to criminal activity. Fortunately, as you'll hear today, our detectives continue to see these offenders trend younger. In 2023, juvenile suspects were involved in 108 shootings. That's a 33% increase from the previous year. One of our recent crime gun cases occurred in December 19th, where we found 4 teens inside a suspect vehicle that were involved in 7 shootings in the span of less than a week. This included a homicide investigation. Our detectives identified and located the vehicle in Hamilton Oaks community off of Beatties Ford Road. Metro Division, along with CGST, attempted to stop the car, but it led us on a high-speed chase. During the pursuit, the suspects threw a handgun out the window. The vehicle was tracked into York County, where it was recovered and the subjects were arrested. The 19-year-old behind the wheel was charged with felony flee to elude and possession of a stolen vehicle, along with resist, delay, and obstruct. The other teens, including a 17-year-old, were all charged with resist, delay, and obstruct. Each teen has a lengthy criminal history, as you can see on the screen, with more offenses likely pending. Like many of the cases Crime Gun handles, the teens were linked to shootings targeting groups of other young people. And shooting into occupied properties and homes, this behavior is so dangerous because of how common it has become and because it can result in innocent third parties being injured. We have a particularly tragic case that happened on April 23rd on Burbank Drive in Metro Division. Officers found an 8-year-old girl, Olivia Velez, who was sleeping on the couch when several bullets ripped through her home. Olivia was struck with a bullet in the head. She survived, but suffered severe life-altering injuries. There were also multiple young people inside this house. There was a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. This case is still ongoing, but detectives believe that the home was targeted due to a conflict between groups of young people. We see these types of reckless shootings often, teens and juveniles, targeting other teens and juveniles, and shooting into vehicles and homes, in some sort of retaliation that goes back and forth. Innocent people like 8-year-old Olivia get caught up in this violence. Like Major Ford and Chief Jennings have said, it goes beyond just the law enforcement. This isn't just a law enforcement issue, and it's become a societal issue that needs community solutions, including conflict resolution and better outlets for young people. We need to break the cycle. In the meantime, we'll continue to use all of our resources, our crime lab, our crime scene, our crime analysts, to help prioritize these types of crimes and try to tackle the gun-related violence in Charlotte. Thank you.
The uptown area of Charlotte truly is the heart of the city, with many people passing through it every day. The Central Division had a plan in 2023 to impact crime in that area, and Major Brett Balamucky is here now to hear more about Operation Heartbeat. Major?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Major Brett Balamucky. I'm the Southeast Patrol Area Major, which includes Uptown. After we have incidents like July 4th and New Year's Eve with large amounts of juveniles and some disruptions uptown and violent crime that results with that, it brings concern, to the safety of Uptown, and it brings concern to the people that come visit. I'm proud of those responses that the department had with both of those large events. One resulted in 47 arrests, 17 juveniles, arrests or citations. 4th of July had another dozen with 11 juveniles charged and guns seized. But again, as you've heard earlier in this briefing, juveniles, guns, violence, those are the things that are really driving the things around Charlotte on top of the property crimes and the recidivism. I'm proud to say the Central Division had a 3% reduction in violent crime for the year. That's due to a lot of hard work because the numbers of people that visit Uptown increase, we continue to have more visitors, more venues, more events. But we're very proud of that 3% reduction. Today I want to really highlight an operation that was done throughout the entire year. That operation is called Operation Heartbeat. And what it was is we looked at specific areas, the division looked at specific geographic areas that had high traffic, high volume, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people visiting, a lot of concern for safety. And that really hubbed around the Charlotte Transit Center, the areas around the Spectrum Center, the parking lots and businesses around there. So with that, the Central Division met with those community partners and people who were vested into that, along with the district attorney's office, and came up with a strategy to be very, to really increase communication, to have results. We've got a map that we can pull up with Heartbeat, but before that, you could see that we had a 36% reduction in violent crime in this geographic area known as Heartbeat throughout the year, with a 43% reduction of robberies. So this is, this is very, we're very proud of that work and effort, because where we saw the reduction and the change in culture around the area is that we saw partnerships come together, and part of Heartbeat, and if you look at the map, you can see that geographic area that was focused on for the year, is that if you committed a criminal act on a property part of this group, the group all would come together and ban people committing criminal acts just on their curtilage. So historically, if you got caught with a gun and drugs, because we had an incident like this just outside the transit center or just in the transit center, it didn't affect you on the business next door. So these people would continue to commit and do illegal acts, but they would just move 50 feet down the street or right across the street, staring at the people who they're usually trying to commit crime around. We had one instance where the Uptown Bike Unit had a man they caught with guns and drugs. He was not concerned at all about the criminal charge. He was more upset that he was being banned from all the area things, because representatives from these businesses and our partners came over and told him he wasn't allowed to come on their property as well. And I remember the look on his face when he's like, why can't I come over there? I only had the gun here. And it was because they came together and made a decision that they weren't going to tolerate criminal and violent behavior. That's why I think that the uniqueness of the results of this area trying to change that behavior through those partnerships. As we looked at uptown, they looked at high traffic areas, right? So the square, the parks, areas that are constantly year-round a focus for violent crime and property crime reduction. So an expansion to Heartbeat became where marked patrol cars with officers in uniform and blue lights going would be stationary in deliberate spots, the square, the parks, so that we increase our visibility, we increase the access for the citizens to connect with our officers, and to really put a sense of safety around uptown and share information as we're having conversations with people that are visiting the city. One instance that happened at the very end of the year before, right at, getting close to January, is a mother saw the blue lights up ahead reflecting off the building. She comes up in a vehicle, comes up to the officer with an 18-month-old who's starting to change colors, and she said he hasn't breathed in 3 minutes. So she's like, he's not breathing, in a panic. The officer's able to identify that he was choking and able to give back blows and medical attention to the 18-month-old that resulted in him starting to breathe again, and then get him to medic. So when we talk about presence and engagement and access to police, although that had nothing to do with a crime, it really had an impact on all of the officers of CMPD to know that if you see us and need us, we're here for you. And he was able to save that. And I think the joke around the office was the officer, got the heartbeat back during a heartbeat operation. So, I was very proud of that, that incident, and I think it really shows that commitment that Uptown has. As we look forward to 2024, Uptown's going to continue to be committed with deliberate strategies and continuing to use that power in partnerships, because we can't do it alone. And through those partnerships, we're going to continue to battle crime and increase the feeling and reality of safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Major. As I mentioned in the beginning, property crime was on the rise in 2023. In response, CMPD developed an operation to target the theft of high-end vehicles. This was named Operation Scarlet. Sergeant Miguel Jaco Vargas is coming next to detail the work of this special project.
Good morning. I'm Sergeant Vargas with the Special Operations Bureau of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Another operation that we are very, very proud of with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department was Operation Scarlet. So Scarlet stands for Stolen Car Recovery and Law Enforcement Team. So following a string of high-end vehicles that were stolen from around the city of Charlotte, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department put together a few detectives to build an operation called Scarlet. We were going to specifically target those high-end vehicle thefts. Those thefts occurred from homes, dealerships, valet garages. During this operation, our detectives were able to uncover a few individuals who were involved in these thefts. And these individuals were involved in these thefts not just in the city of Charlotte, but around the United States. Texas, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, just to name a couple. Once our detectives, these individuals, we started to make arrests, and we started to partner with our federal partners. A lot of these vehicles are being used in the drug trade as they're resold, and the money and the proceeds from those vehicles are used to purchase narcotics and firearms. A lot of these arrests and a lot of these vehicles we've been able to link to different robberies, occupied shootings at occupied dwellings, and drive-by shootings in the city of Charlotte. We're proud to announce that Scarlet's efforts have resulted in the recovery of 180 stolen luxury vehicles across the Southeast that was worth more than $11 million. Detectives have also additionally seized 111 firearms during our investigation. We've also seized just under $1 million worth of narcotics during this investigation. Detectives have made 85 total arrests in reference to this investigation, and those 85 arrests cover over 800 criminal charges in 40 different jurisdictions in the United States. These are massive numbers, right? And they impact not just the city of Charlotte, but across the United States, especially the Southeast, right? We were able to accomplish this with teaming up with our federal partners at the FBI, HSI, and NICB to accomplish these efforts in recovering these vehicles and arresting these individuals. On the screen, you'll see one of our cases that we just were able to finish up in December. Detectives were able to get additional information and start to perform surveillance on the suspect, Aaron Woodson, and his address. We were able to locate that one of the vehicles at his address was a F-150, was stolen and cloned. Our detectives went to work, perform more surveillance, utilize our federal partners, and were able to get a search warrant and able to execute the search warrant at his residence. During the search warrants, our officers and detectives seized 4 additional vehicles. One was a Dodge Durango Hellcat, one was a Chevy Corvette, and the other one was a Jeep Grand Wagoneer. Additionally, we seized 9 additional firearms, 86 pounds of marijuana, 8 pounds of mushrooms, and just over $590,000 in cash. This case is a perfect illustration of what our detectives have been after and what we have been successful at doing, which is targeting these high-end criminals in the city of Charlotte. In 2024, we're looking forward to the continued success of Scarlet and to a ripple effect that it will have in our jurisdiction. Thank you.
We'll continue now on the topic of property crime, and Major Ryan Butler is going to come now to speak about property crime in a little more detail and how juvenile crime also relates. Major?
Good morning. I'm Major Ryan Butler with the Patrol Northwest Service Area. As was stated, while violent crime stayed flat across Charlotte, in 2023, we saw a sizable increase in property crime, largely attributing to our overall increase in crime. This past year, we saw a 17% increase in property crime. That increase was mainly fueled by a 120% surge in auto thefts. In fact, if our auto thefts had stayed flat, with 2022 numbers continuing into 2023, the city of Charlotte would have only experienced a 4% increase in property crime, instead of a 17% increase. Last year alone, more than 8,000 vehicles were reported stolen in the city of Charlotte. To break that down, that's the equivalent of 22 vehicles being stolen every single day. That's a staggering number. These car thefts are not a new issue, and much of it traces back to the Kia Hyundai social media challenge we've discussed previously that started in the summer of 2022. We're seeing the majority of car thefts being committed by teenagers. Juveniles account for 68% of all auto theft arrests. Kia and Hyundai thefts make up the majority of our total auto thefts at 67%. We've been partnering with residents and community organizations to reduce these theft opportunities. Our officers have handed out over 1,500 steering wheel locks to Kia and Hyundai owners. Our officers continue to work tirelessly to investigate auto thefts, to recover the vehicles, and to locate the suspects from these thefts. In 2023, CMPD recovered 62% of all stolen vehicles and made more than 1,200 total auto theft arrests. There was an increase in 98% on auto theft arrests over 2022. Remember though, juveniles are committing most of these auto thefts, and this crime, though very serious, is not classified as a violent crime. But it's not just auto thefts that are on the rise. In 2023, total larcenies rose 3%. That category includes an 8% jump in larcenies from automobiles. Juvenile arrests for larceny from auto increased by 128%. That's 219 juvenile arrests for larceny from auto in 2023. Larcenies from auto impact more than just the vehicle owners who deal with the damage to their vehicles and the loss of property. This also leads to firearms being stolen out of these vehicles and ending up in the hands of individuals who should legally not possess them. As you see in the slide, there were a total of 1,953 firearms stolen in Charlotte last year. Of that, 1,217 firearms were stolen from automobiles. We're seeing these repeated auto thefts and car break-ins lead to more sinister crimes. Juveniles are not just stopping at stealing cars. They're stealing guns out of cars and using these weapons to commit violent offenses. I'm going to share with you just a few examples. On December 28th of 2023 in the University City Division, one of our juvenile offenders, a 15-year-old with 13 arrests, including 5 for auto theft, led officers on a chase where he drove in excess of 100 miles per hour. 4 other juvenile offenders were in the car. When arrested, officers found 5 firearms in that vehicle. One of the suspects had recently cut off his electronic monitor and was wanted for a recent violent offense. On May 12th in the Central Division, a 15-year-old juvenile offender who's been charged 48 times in 2023, after being released from a youth development center, crashed a stolen car after fleeing officers. He was arrested and found with 2 firearms on his person. That 15-year-old was arrested 17 times for stealing cars this past year and was found with a firearm every single time he was arrested. That individual currently does not have a secure custody order. On November 16th in the Hickory Grove Division, a 16-year-old juvenile offender with 30 charges in 2023 was arrested for armed robbery, where he drove a stolen vehicle into an apartment complex, robbed and assaulted a woman, and took her property. There were 3 other juveniles accompanying this suspect. We have endless examples like these. If you add up all the charges for our 3 most prolific juvenile offenders in 2023, it would equal 122 crimes. That's just 2023 numbers. As a society, we have to ask ourselves, how do we allow this to happen? Why are these juveniles, who have shown no remorse or willingness to change, released back into the very communities that they continue to prey upon? Juvenile crime is an issue we've warned the community about at every one of our quarterly press briefings in 2023. It has gained new attention following the New Year's Eve incident uptown, but it isn't just an issue uptown. It's impacting the entire city. And if you look beyond that, the entire state. The Raise the Age law that was implemented in 2019 has created a substantial challenge for law enforcement in providing public safety. Before the law went into effect, 16 and 17-year-olds were treated the same in the criminal justice system as someone who was 18 or older. If they committed a misdemeanor or felony crime, they were taken to jail, processed, went before a judge or a magistrate for terms of release to be established. Under Raise the Age, 16 and 17-year-olds rarely go to jail other than for driving offenses. If they commit a misdemeanor or felony crime, they're arrested as a juvenile. And what happens next, or what doesn't happen next, is important. The vast majority of juveniles who are arrested are simply released back to their parent or guardian. Only a very small number of juveniles receive a secure custody order through the Department of Juvenile Justice, meaning that we take them to a juvenile detention facility. Here's an additional example. We've changed the name of the juvenile. We'll call him Matt Roberts. Matt was found in possession of a stolen vehicle. Officers pulled him over and found a handgun in his waistband with an extended magazine. In a book bag inside the car near him, officers located an additional firearm and marijuana that was packaged for sale. During the investigation, officers ended up going back to his residence and conducting a search of his room. In the room, they found additional drugs and 2 other firearms that had been modified to be fully automatic. Before Raise the Age, Matt Roberts would have been arrested, taken to jail, and processed. Under the current law, Matt Roberts could not be taken to jail because he's 17 years old. In this real-life case, the Department of Juvenile Justice declined to issue a secure custody order for this juvenile. That means he was simply released back to his parent or guardian. This happens all the time. Whether a juvenile is committing property crime or violent crime, they need to be held accountable for their actions. Under the current laws, there is neither enough deterrence nor corrective action for these crimes. These juveniles and their parents have public anonymity, reducing the ability for law enforcement agencies to share information with each other, for us to share information with communities, and for us to share information with our media partners to focus on public safety concerns. Until something changes, we're going to continue to see our Charlotte citizens preyed upon by a group of juveniles who don't fear repercussions for their actions. That is what our officers and our communities are up against. CMPD will continue to do its part, but we need changes, whether that's through the legislature or the judicial system or community outcry. I want to leave you with a couple more because these are historical examples. So this morning I got up and, just like many of us do, looked at my phone to check my email. One of the first emails there was an email from one of our East detectives who had just finished up dealing with a couple of auto theft suspects. So Eastway Division got a call for service. Officers went out there, were able to locate two suspects who definitely broken into two cars, appeared to possibly have been trying to steal them. One suspect is 12, the other suspect was 16. Both of these suspects have established criminal records and are people that we've dealt with numerous times. Earlier this week, I was speaking to an auto theft victim who wanted me to know that although she was going to move on, she felt violated. You know, it doesn't take a violent crime for someone to be impacted. You know, we say it's not violent, it's just property crime. It's just a car theft or a car break-in. Those impact our victims all over the city, our victims in our community, often our family members, sometimes ourselves. These are very serious crimes. And without some method of accountability or system in place to hold individuals accountable, we are going to continue to see these actions in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Major Butler. Chief Jennings is going to come now to the podium again to share his thoughts on CMPD's priorities as we move into 2024. And after he concludes his remarks, he'll take some questions. Chief.
Thank you. All right, as we wrap this up, certainly, again, appreciate everyone being here, but you've heard a lot of talk throughout the speakers, including myself, about the issue that's revolving around juveniles and juvenile crime. I want to be clear that this is not a knock on the Department of Juvenile Justice. It's not a knock on legislation. It's just to bring attention to see what the challenges that we're dealing with out on the streets every single day. Some of those numbers are just astonishing to hear. When you talk about how many juvenile crimes that we're dealing with regularly, what percentage of juveniles are involved in the results of our crime stats, particularly with the auto thefts. We have to really look at what we are doing to ensure that we're keeping our community safe and to ensure that we're protecting the juveniles, not just the ones that are being victimized by crime, but also the ones that are committing the crime. You know, it's important that we know that we are not going to sit and hide behind the fact that there is an issue out there. And I'll commit, as I have before, to do everything that I can to work with anyone that was willing to sit at the table, that we come together and make solutions to how do we make sure that the juveniles that we are dealing with every single day are not continuing to prey on our citizens. And that doesn't mean, when we talk about accountability for juveniles, we're not talking about let's just start arresting and making sure that everyone that we arrest is locked up and not free to roam about society. What we're talking about is accountability on the end of, you have to be accountable for the crime that you committed, and let's stop making excuses for those who are committing criminal activities over and over again. If incarceration is the answer, then let it be the answer. If rehabilitation is the answer, then let it be rehabilitation. But there has to be a lot more people smarter than me and smarter than anyone in this room that will have answers to how do we make sure that we steer juveniles into the right direction once they commit crimes. We're very proud of our juvenile interactions that we have within CMPD our deterrence programs that we have, things that we are doing to make sure that juveniles do not reoffend. And just the other day, we had meetings about other things that we can do that don't take a lot of action on our part, that don't take a lot of manpower or a lot of effort, but just take a lot of attention in dealing with the right people and the right juveniles that we come in contact with. We also need to look at, we heard some comments about raise the age. And I'm not a critic of raise the age. What I am thinking that needs to happen at this point is let's go back and look at raise the age and see if it's accomplishing what it set out to accomplish in the first place. Or is it hindering us in our efforts to fight crime? And we have to be able to do an analysis and a deep dive into evaluation of that. And if it's not, then maybe we need to look back and figure something else out. But at this time, I can tell you, just based on the numbers and the increase that we're seeing, it's something that needs to be certainly reevaluated. But at the same time, what needs to be reevaluated are the resources that are provided. You know, when you talk about Department of Juvenile Justice and our court system, you know, what are the resources that they have? Do they have enough to be able to take on the influx of numbers that we're providing to them just from the police side? And that needs to be evaluated. If not, let's get them more resources so they can deal with this. Let's pay them more staffing, whatever it takes to ensure that we can handle this and not continue to go down this slippery slope when we talk about juvenile crime. You know, it's unfortunate because there are bad people in this society, and when they get out and when we arrest them over and over again, and when they get back out, they are a problem with the police department. The more interactions that you have within CMPD and our officers on the streets every day, the more dangerous it becomes. And that's why I say sometimes incarceration is not just to protect our citizens from these bad people, it's to protect the bad people from themselves as well. And we're committed to do that. So as we move forward and we sit down and talk about what are the strategic priorities for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department in 2024, it's going to be pretty simple based on what you've already heard. One, we're going to continue our efforts to manage violent crime and continue to try and get even more reductions even through what we've seen in the past 3 years. We have to reduce our automobile property crime. You not only talked about the auto thefts, but also the larceny from auto. And you heard Major Butler say, had we simply been even in auto thefts compared to what we saw last year, we would be looking at a 4% increase in property crime. And I would say, I would call that a pretty successful year given the years in the past that we've had as well. Recruitment and retention also continues to be a priority. As I talked about recruiting numbers and how the applications are up, those numbers need to continue to rise. And at this pace, we are looking at being able to fill our vacancies within the next year, year and a half. And that'll be a phenomenal effort on our part as well. And also, we talk about our customer service experience within our officers' interactions with both the people that we serve externally and then also with each other. Those efforts will continue as far as through 2024. So with support from legislation, from council, from all of our representatives and senators, all of that across the state, we hope that we can continue to make changes and continue to do the right thing to ensure that crime does not overtake our society. So with that, I will be glad to take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you so much for everything and for what you do. When it comes to secured custody orders, do you guys know why some get approved and why some get denied?
Yeah, I mean there is a system that they have when we do contact contact DJJ on trying to attempt to get the secure custody orders. A lot of times it is unclear, but they are in a very tough situation. Not only do they have to look at the space that is available, where do we take the juveniles if we do get a secure custody order? But also they need to look at the crime that has been committed along with the history of what that juvenile has been involved in. What I can tell you is that we are far too often missing the boat on that, because when you talk about a juvenile who's been arrested 20, 30 times and still out roaming the streets even before they have a court hearing on their cases, then I think that's a failure for that juvenile and for our community.
What would you say to families who are now hesitant to go to events in Uptown like Romare Theater Park due to the shooting on New Year's Eve where 5 people were shot?
Yeah, certainly. So New Year's Eve, and you talk about, we mentioned 4th of July last year, again, and we're talking about young people who decide to come to these events and bring a firearm or other weapons or to commit criminal activity. And that's unfortunate. And you look at what happened New Year's Eve, it was actually outside of the footprint of the actual event itself and occurred in the park. And we have to decide as a city and as a community, how do we want our events to go? Do we want to lock them down, secure them to where you have a single point of ingress, egress, security checkpoints, all of that? Hopefully we don't get to that point, because we want to be able to have open, free events where everybody can come out and enjoy. But at the same time, it puts our officers in a very bad situation to where not only are we endangering people in the public who come out to enjoy the events, you're also endangering the officers when you have, you look at the videos of all of that, everyone's running away while our officers are running towards the gunfire, and within seconds, they're either apprehending people or beginning that investigation. So I will say, for the most part, you heard the numbers. Uptown Charlotte is a safe environment. There are some quality of life things that we do need to deal with and that we're hoping to deal with, but also have to be able to deter people from coming uptown mainly during special events as well, for the mere fact of committing criminal acts. So that's a very tough challenge for us.
Chief, there's been an uptick in juvenile crime, obviously. So, what are some of your plans for 2024 to reduce that type of crime?
Yeah, again, so I laugh when I hear people say, well, what are you going to do about juvenile crime? And yet I can show the numbers of how many times we are continuing to arrest and continue. So it's telling me that we're doing the right thing. And where is that breakdown in the system? And so I know my plan is to have those discussions to figure out where can we do better outside of CMPD and the criminal justice system, and the entire criminal justice system, to ensure that we're doing right by the public and doing right by the juveniles, to make sure they get back on track too. But at the same time, we are looking constantly at different things that outside of what we already do through juvenile diversion programs and our summer programs that we have for youth. There's a couple of other things that we are looking at that we have been piloting that we're wanting to put full force. That information will come out later, I'm sure, but I think those will be successful. And we're talking specifically about recidivism. So when we have contact with an individual, a young individual, that we want to make sure that they do not reoffend and become a chronic issue for law enforcement. So,
Chief, do we know how many crimes involve juveniles?
I think those numbers were up there. If not, we'll get those. We'll put across the board. I think we did have total juvenile crimes was one of the slides that was put up earlier. Did you have a question?
You answered it.
Oh, did okay.
So
I read your mind. So, yeah.
When you talk about juvenile crimes, this is something you guys have talked about many times at these press conferences. Do we have any idea? I know it's hard to pinpoint where it's stemming from, but is social media playing a role? I mean, when I was these kids' age, this wasn't my thought process, to go and grab a gun, and now we're seeing as young as 12. So is there something that you guys are seeing, a pattern of where it's coming from?
I can give you my personal opinion, and you answered your own question when you said social media. Because the Kia Hyundai theft is specifically because of social media and how easily it is to steal those vehicles. And that's what sparked a lot of the increase across our entire country when it comes to stealing vehicles, the Hyundai and Kias. So you also see, you look at social media, just how common it is to make videos with guns and cash and drugs and all of that. And it almost becomes accepted within our society. And that's a shame, because young people see that and they want to mimic and mimic that behavior, and they think that's the cool thing, or that's the way society is. And again, we have to make sure that we show other examples, positive examples within our community, that this is not the way to go, this is not the path to go, and the sooner we can get to those young people, the better.
Time for one or two more.
You've been preaching recruitment a lot lately.
Yes. Yeah.
Now you seem to see an increase in recruitment.
Yes.
What do you attribute the increase to?
Well, I think the increase in our recruitment, one of the main things is we worked with across the street with the city and city council, and we were able to actually increase the starting pay so that when you start as a police officer, that pay actually is 2 steps higher than what it was in previous years. And when you start looking at people that are now becoming interested in becoming law enforcement, and if they want to come to North Carolina, then the department of choice is more and more becoming the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. I think that's a great thing for us. Also, as you look across what's going on since 2020, some of the stigma of policing has subsided to where people are now willing to come in and say, I want to serve and I want a career in law enforcement. And you couple all of that with just Charlotte being a great city and CMPD being a great department. All of that sparks the applications and the hiring. So.
One last question for you. Can you explain the decision for not deciding to hold a press conference following the New Year's Eve shooting?
Can I explain that?
Yeah, the decision why you guys decided not to hold a press conference.
Well, we sent out several releases on what kept everyone up to date on the investigation. Generally have not done press conferences for shootings that were not anywhere else in the city. If it's not life-threatening, or you're talking about people that were shot below the knee. But we were certainly giving out the information. A press conference wouldn't have given additional information for that. So we didn't think it was a need for a press conference.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
As we wrap up, and before we wrap up, I just want to provide spellings for all of our speakers for you. I know that's something that you probably need. Our first speaker